All right, howdy folks. My name is Calvin Boone, and today we're going to talk about fluorocarbon chemicals in ski wax. I'm on the cross-country ski team here at St. Scholastica. I've been skiing for many years, and right now one of the biggest conversations in competitive Nordic ski racing is the safety of using fluorocarbons in ski wax, both environmental concerns and human health safety concerns. So, what are fluorocarbon chemicals? Fluorocarbons are chemicals composed of carbon and fluorine. Because of the strength of the covalent bond between carbon and fluorine, these chemicals are extremely difficult to break down. They're also very effective at repelling water, which is the primary reason behind their use in ski wax. In cross-country skiing, there are two primary structure types of fluorocarbons used in performance wax, C6 and C8. The C6 fluorocarbon has a 6-carbon chain, while C8 has 8 carbon atoms. C6 is usually less expensive and less effective than the C8 fluorocarbon. Why are these chemicals concerning? In an analysis of a Swedish ski center, Dr. Merle Plossman, who's a lab manager at Stockholm University, found concerningly high concentrations of PFC chemical contamination in groundwater after snowmelt. So on the ski trails after the snow melted that year, he went out and performed a test to see what the PFC groundwater and soil concentration was, and it was much higher than you usually expect. There are substantial environmental concerns stemming from the strength of PFCs and their potential adverse risks to wildlife species. We're going to continue that here. So one of the most significant concerns comes from toxicological studies of rats that illustrated significant risk increases for certain cancers. And if we extrapolate this data to other keystone species, that could prove pretty disastrous for certain habitats. You could have major food chain disruption, which the impacts of that would be pretty consequential. All right, so then an analysis of PFCs in the environment. This is where I got the primary source of information here. It was a journal from a group of researchers who published this in Soil and Sediment Contamination, which is probably my favorite scientific journal. I've actually never read it. So they actually concluded through a bunch of different resources, they compiled them together and came to the conclusion that a reduction in PFC use is critical, and there needs to be an increased effort towards exploring routes towards PFC removal from the environment, which, like we talked about earlier, is really difficult because of the strength of fluorocarbons. So in competitive ski racing, the reason these are so successful is the way the branch-trained fluorocarbons interact with water and are able to repel oil and grease. Fluorinated waxes work especially well when the snow is particularly wet or sharp, as its water-repelling nature reduces any grab or friction between the snow and the base of the ski. And as more concerns have come out around PFCs and ski wax, there's increasing pressure to ban the chemicals from competition and move towards fluoro-free alternatives. So what would the fluoro-free future look like? The challenge for chemists in the near future will be optimizing environmentally friendly chemical compounds for ski wax production. They're going to need to find a compound that is both extremely water repellent and chemically strong while still being safe, and that's going to be really difficult. I mean, there have been non-fluoro training waxes used for many years, but the difference between a non-fluoro wax and a fluoro wax is probably the difference between a Ferrari and a Prius. It's incredible, the difference between the two. And then there's also going to be a trick in terms of enforcing the ban. That was actually what they were going to try to do this year, was ban fluoros in competition, and obviously COVID was a challenge there too. But they had to roll back the ban because they couldn't find an effective way to enforce it, especially with fluoros possibly being on the snow from recreational skiers, contaminating ski bases. They really don't have a super strong way to enforce it, and they want to make sure that this is going to be fair for all athletes in the future. So we'll have to see how that goes. And these are the sources. Here's the journal is the first one here, and then I had an article from Faster Skier that talked about more specifically fluorocarbons and ski wax and then that regulation.